Wolf Guy, a manga that I knew nothing about until I watched this video on YouTube. I didn't start reading the manga straight away after watching the video, and I didn't even research it until the 9th of August, which was a few months after watching the video. During that time, I read the whole manga in 5 days, and the whole manga was 117 chapters or 12 volumes. The thing that made me wanted to read it to the end was the insanity of the series. However, I also wanted to know how was the situation that I was reading gonna end up, because it was that crazy. I was like, oh, how are they gonna get out of this one? It looks impossible. Anyway, let me tell you about the story. The story is about a middle school student called Akira Inugami. Yeah, I don't know why the author decided to make, these characters designed to be middle school students. Like, come on, at least make them high school students, like 18 plus. Like, and especially if the stuff that they go through, yeah, it's got to be 18 plus, man. But hey, man, it's Japan, man. You know how they do it. Anyway, Akira Inugami has the ability to transform into a werewolf during the full moon, and in addition to that, his human form gains superhuman physical characteristics, making Inugami a force to be reckoned with. Despite this, Inugami decides to hold back most of the time, as he believes that humans are not worth fighting for. Another aspect is that his powers diminish as soon as the new moon arrives. The setting of a limit to this otherwise powerhouse of a character forces the main character in situations where the manga brings out the tension of the dangerous situations our protagonist and his allies find themselves in. Right off the bat, this manga will put our main character through life and death scenarios. An example of this is during Inugami's first day at school, as he's threatened with a knife, and due to his promise not to fight humans, he decides to dodge all the strikes, making the guy fall on his own knife. Yes, the first fight of the series, you have a guy stabbing himself. That's how insane this manga is. We immediately see the confidence of the main character and being a man of his word, already putting Inugami in a tier of like being a badass protagonist. Like, come on, man. Who goes into their first day of school and he already gets smoked like that? Like, come on, man. I haven't seen it. There are also two other characters that play an important part in Wolf Guy, Do Haguro and Aiko Aoshika. Both have different relationships with Inugami, and both force the protagonist to take part in situations they wouldn't usually take part in. Haguro is also is a 15-year-old, like Inugami, that isn't like any other 15-year-olds. Does this really look like a 15-year-old to you? Maybe in dog years. He starts off as a side character in the beginning, but develops into a menacing villain as the manga goes on. His personality also changes throughout the manga, as does Inugami. Both characters represent their views of justice differently, and the clashes together is something to behold. Yoshiaki Tobata's artwork in these fight scenes display the raw monstrosity of these two characters, that are both on the edge of humanity and monstrosity, something that both characters have dilemmas on, whether they're human or a monster, giving the dynamic these two characters have that pushes both of them to their absolute limits. The third most important character is Akiko Aoshika, the teacher of Inugami and Haguro's class. She serves as the catalyst to Inugami's interaction with humans. Inugami knows that being a werewolf is a bad omen, and that he always attracts bad attention wherever he goes. The story starts from Inugami trying to distance himself from Aoshika, but then slowly decides to open up, as he's never had someone who's willing to follow him so far. In spite of that, Tobata uses Aoshika for various reasons to connect the main characters as well as the side characters. One of the side characters being Akira Jin, a reporter that observes the events of the manga. Now, this starts off my criticisms of this manga. We never get to see the past of Akira Jin, and whenever you see him, it's only for a brief time. However, especially during the final arc, he has his moments that makes up for the short time he's on screen, or on paper for this matter, unless you're reading it digitally like me, because this manga has no English release. He also has a secret power, but I'll let you find out when you read the manga. Despite Aoshika helping connect the characters to the series, she is used as fan service in this manga. And as someone who's a fan of series such as One Piece and A Comic Got Kill, I've gotten used to female characters that are drawn in such a manner, but you start to think them in a different way when you look at them, rather than, if they look like an average girl. But for me, it's not a problem. However, I can see how this might impact someone's reading experience, as she does serve as an important character in the story, despite not being a fighter. The last arc of the series also features the three main characters in a very stressful situation. I won't spoil it here, as the impact is better left to be experienced. However, I believe the last arc is probably the reason why this series will never get an anime, in addition to this manga not being popular at all. because of how intense, the last arc is, and then, no one's really heard of Wolf Guy. I never even heard of it until that YouTube video that had the top 40 seinen manga lists. However, the last arc of this series completely forces the two main characters to do things that are out of their character, actions which will force them in life and death situations, and that will make you amazed by the lengths Inugami and Haguro go to fight to the end. The action of this series is what you see in the anime such as Gantz and other body horror, such as Parasite and Tokyo Ghoul. So if you're a fan of those series, Wolf Guy is definitely a recommendation. I haven't read Akumetsu, Tobato's other manga, so I didn't have any expectation whether this manga would be good or not, but from what I've heard, Akumetsu is very good, but I haven't read it. So it's kind of weird me reading Wolf Guy first, the unpopular one. To my surprise, I was intrigued straight away from the awesomeness of Inugami. Seeing him deal with the thugs at his school was making me think, can this guy get any cooler? Watching it happen just made me like wonder how far would he go before actual damage affects him, because you just see this guy getting beat up and he's just taking it. He's not fighting back because, you know, of his omen not to fight humans, but you think to yourself, bro, this guy might actually get hurt, you know? So yeah, that's what I was so amazed about the main character. Like, he's a badass. Just leave it at that. Another criticism is that aside from Haguro and Aoshika and the main character, of course, the other characters are not used as much. I know it's because it's probably a 12-volume series, so there wasn't much time to write in detail about the characters that interact with Inugami, but I still think this is a misuse of potential. Despite this, the small cast all interacted with each other and affected the outcome of the story, so at least the world-building aspect was done well in this manga. I mentioned the art in this manga, like, damn, it's really, really, really cool, man. Especially during the fight scenes. You know, the art doesn't hold back in its fight scenes. You'll see limbs flying off. You get to see people getting smashed to smithereens left, right, and center. It's not hyper-realistic art. However, it is enough to understand what's going on most of the time. Adding on to the point of the art, there are graphic torture scenes in this manga, so in case you're sensitive, be aware when you're reading. And also, it kind of lasts for a long time. It lasts for 14 chapters. Like, it goes to the point where, I'm not going to spoil anything, it goes to the point where it kind of drags on and you just want it to end. Like, you have the shock value in the beginning, and then afterwards it's just a long period of pain for the character being tortured, and it kind of hurts to read it. However, you know, I can see why people will be, you know, put off by that. But I think the torture scene was used specifically in the story arc to inflict trauma onto the characters involved, and, you know, thus developing them, you know, changing them from the beginning of the story to the ending of the story. So obviously it's quite, you know, disturbing, but it does serve a purpose. It's not just like, you know, snuff or whatever. The philosophy of the main character of this series also develops as the story goes on. Inugami defends his lone wolf personality, embodying it in the situations where, you know, he gets himself in pain because of someone else. And he acknowledges this, and he tells human beings that are trying to help them to leave him alone and not to follow him. Staying near him will just get them hurt. However, in the situations that Aoshika and Inugami's classmates get into, he feels that it'll be cowardly to stand back and not do anything. However, even this thought internally challenges him, as he is so used to doing everything alone that helping another human being will just feels alien to him. Okay, and the ending of the series, not to give any spoilers, but it's quite an abrupt one. I didn't hate it, but at the same time, it wasn't a perfect ending. It felt like the author was in a rush to finish this series. Despite this, there wasn't any plot holes like there were in other endings in manga that I've read. In addition to this, the characters involved in the manga are all shown what the state is after the final arc, which gives at least some closure. Overall, I'd give Wolf Guy an 8 out of 10. The story isn't a deep one, however, the action, art, and insanity make up for it. It's a 12-volume series that you'll probably binge within a week or so. As I said before in the beginning of the video, I read all 117 chapters in 5 days because that's how much I like this series. The action is really entertaining, and Inugami is just him. Yes, he is him in Wolf Guy. A badass that's levels above his competitions, that takes the confrontation head-on in a manner that oozes confidence. The art and the action sequences are like you're watching an action movie play out in front of you, and each fight is filled with straight-up awesomeness. However, this manga doesn't have the story to be considered an all-time great. The philosophy of the main character only comes into the fruition during the final arc, and also the Aoshika character can be a damsel in distress in the manga. There are moments where, you know, she stands up for herself and for other people, but, you know, a lot of the times, like, she's getting herself into trouble, and Okay, like, come on now, Shika. You should have learned the first time. Whatever. I still recommend it a lot as I found it thoroughly entertaining, and I was up until 1 a.m. reading. Like, if the manga gets you reading up until late at night, come on, you know it's a good manga. Anyway, thank you so much for watching this review that I decided to make for this underrated manga. If you've already read Wolf Guy, please leave a comment below on what you thought of the series, what you liked, what you disliked about it. In my opinion, it's not a perfect manga, but it certainly got me hyped up. Thanks for everything. Take care, everyone.